Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a new episode of the X Button, Season 5, Episode 7. I am your host, Alejandro, and making his long-awaited return after a long month.
Hey everybody, it's Paul. I'm back. I'm alive.
Yes, glad you're here, Paul. And also joining me, my co-host that's both a dumpster fire of exploding fish takes, Joe.
How's it going, Alex? Paul, good to see you again. Glad to have you back.
Yeah, reuniting after a month. It's been a month since the last
Literally
recording.
a month, yeah.
That's kind of wild. Just to think about that.
The passage of time continues to confound and frustrate me.
Yeah, that's what's called parenthood. But then, how are you guys doing otherwise? Like, how's your days been?
Lovely. It snowed today and yesterday, but not like a whole lot. It was a pleasant level of snow where like it was 20 degrees, snow flurries, but nothing like froze the earth or anything. So we were like just sitting pretty.
Nice.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, there are brief periods where it has stopped snowing here, but it just is always snowing here. So
in New York, yeah, and I heard that there's like a polar vortex happening like tomorrow, like in Washington. I'm like, damn, they're like the Norths are getting really hit by the White Walkers right now.
Yeah.
So, but hey, at least you get.
It's fine. It's whatever as long as the heat works and I have walls. Yeah, right.
Question, Joe, like, is your apartment like equipped to not like have the pipes freeze and explode? Like I've seen so many places whenever it gets too cold. No idea.
I mean, I'm assuming it's only the building's 10 years old this year, so it's really not an old building when it comes to age of buildings, if you think about it. So, yeah, it doesn't really have that issue as far as I'm aware. We've got a heater in like heat to keep the apartment warm, which is good. And like obviously you have to have it, but it's a central heating system, so it's also air conditioning, which a lot of places up in Rochester, New York don't have. In older buildings, they don't have the air condition function because it doesn't get that hot most of the time, but we have it both. So I think our building's pretty well insulated and well designed. We do need new windows, though. We have this thing where the sealant on the windows is not as strong, and so they're starting to get like this weird foggy thing inside them, and apparently this is happening all over the building, and it just means the windows need to be replaced.
Okay.
I mean, we don't have to pay for it, so I don't care.
Yeah, and Paul, is your house, you know, if they build your house just right for it to withstand the winter?
Yep, because they put all the pipes underneath the house where the little crawl space is, so there's no wire pipes that are outside of the house, and that is a-okay for me. Because at first I was worried about that, and then the guy that built it, he was just like, "Yeah, don't worry about that. We just cover everything."
We understand how the world works now.
Alex, does El Salvador have above ground power or
above ground? Yes, above ground power. That's why my PS5 died, because the where I had it connected ironically got killed by my internet, because it was like kind of like the internet is like it's not fiber, so it wasn't like underground, so it was kind of like a normal kind of like coaxial cable line, and where the big power surge happened through that line, and not kind of like my connection. So when they checked my PS5, they were like, the thing works fine. Like the thing where you plug it in, it's working fine. It's just the motherboard got burned at the top. And I was like, why did it got burned? I was like, oh, my Ethernet port. So that's why.
Yeah, so I still don't understand why we haven't started shifting all of our power lines underground. I get that it's a little bit more annoying to fix, but also it should break far less frequently than it does, especially in a state like where my condo is, where my home state is in Florida. Hurricanes. If you have a hurricane, you really don't want power lines in the air, and yet there they are, and you're almost going to lose power. I mean, I got lucky. I knock on wood, I didn't lose any power the last storm that came through, but
yeah. Unfortunately, Paul had to like take like the greatest hurricane in North Carolina history with him last year.
Apparently, Lord have mercy.
Yes, but hey, we're here to have fun and escape from a little bit of reality, because this is the X Bottom Podcast, our gaming podcast that posts every Fridays from 10 a.m. onwards, God willing, available in the YouTube channel Escape Gaming, as well as most audio services around the world, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and the like. You can find links in the RSS feed at tinyurl.com/escape gaming. If you enjoy our show, give us a like and subscribe. And just as a little housekeeping, Joe here was at the Season Gaming Bitcast this past Sunday, like his first time guesting there. It was a fun time that he was there, where I got to super chat trolling him like how horrible his takes were. And the best part, everyone agreed that his takes were dumpsters. So everyone in the YouTube chat were like, they were all on my side.
You know what? You picked me to be your co-host, buddy. So how good are your takes really then?
Yeah, it's like it put into perspective like my judge of character. I tell you.
It was a lot of fun. Alex, have you ever guested on it before? Have you ever been?
Yeah, we have been working like when I was gonna like guess with them, it just needed to be kind of like the right game, and for you, it just so happened that it was about, and Travis had reviewed it. So because I was trying to get in during the rebirth time because I wanted to counter Hoag's like horrible takes about the story about that game. So I needed to kind of put out that perspective, especially because I was seeing Dan Rodriguez was like taking his side without even playing, and I'm like, don't listen to him. Don't listen to him. It's like there's a reason this thing is praised. So
I miss Dan.
Yeah. So time to talk about what we've been playing. Paul, since you've been gone for a while, bless us with some of your gaming like thoughts and
so I'm gonna like take a deep breath, like was it Wacko from the Animaniacs, where he's listing all the countries like all right, here we go. We're gonna just list everything.
I almost spit my coffee when you said that. I was drinking it. Okay. Go.
So I'll start off with Ninja Gaiden 2 Black. Finally got to sit down, touch that, play that, and never touched a Ninja Gaiden game before, which is funny because I am the obsessive character action game guy. It passed me by, unfortunately, and by the time I was able to play it, they weren't really making any of the games anymore. Well, this one was really fun. It's really crazy. I got through chapter 2. Yes, because I fought the giant spider thing, and I fought the thing before that. And it's a lot of fun. Very entertaining. I only had difficulty, ironically enough, with near the end of chapter 2, but everything else has been just like, okay, cool. I'm just going to beat the crap out of this. And so it makes me feel very validated because everybody's always talked about like how difficult that game is, or just the series in general. So I was like, oh, am I actually good? Am I good? This is amazing.
Fatherhood hasn't dulled your reflexes yet.
Apparently not.
No, I actually say that sometimes fatherhood makes like your reflexes like improve, especially when you play like.
Are you a father?
I've seen it for many people. Like I've heard of people beating Bloodborne with a newborn, like in their laps. So I've seen that happen.
And I actually, Joe might not know it because the first game that I ever played after Emrys was born was Armored Core 6. And I replayed the entire game from start to finish with both New Game Pluses and died far less than I would have before.
And that's a hard game. It's a hard game.
Chapter 4, the crazy like red lightning gold thing, one try. Fantastic time. And then, and then of course replaying all of Elden Ring immediately after that. So apparently I've got it. Anyway.
Yes.
So that was a lot of fun. Then, of course, we went to, I'll jump to, I'll just go along the line. Monster Hunter Wilds Beta. I got to play that, and it's so weird. You don't get to change any of your armors, and you only get to fight, like, a handful of things, and all I wanted to do was just keep going back and running around in that world. I just wanted to run on my sacrets and kill things and try out different weapons and try out the different combos of armors, because I love the fact that the armor isn't gendered anymore, because it just gives you so many more options to run around, and it's so gorgeous of a game. It's so entertaining, and I'm just really excited for next week. And that's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to finish with this one next. So then I went back to Eternal Strands because Alejandro pointed out this little piece of tech that had somehow escaped my knowledge, in that if you hit up on the directional button, it tells you exactly what direction to go when you have an objective. And just as much as I talked about how good I was at Ninja Gaiden, directions are not my forte. Actually, you know what? We could even throw Doom 2016 because it's the same issue happened to me there. The whole issue that I've been having, and now Doom 2016 is going to catch some strays here because, you know what? I'm going to throw a hot take in here. Doom should have the layout of Ninja Gaiden.
Yeah, that's
make
just
it linear. I'm tired of all this exploration, this nonsense of going through 20 identical corridors or various lava themed red map areas.
Wait, isn't that the definition of linear? Isn't just like linear? Isn't corridors?
No, but like it's that, except you have this big room, and then there's like 40 different tunnels going different directions, and you see the way forward has a big old like, you need the red key card for this area, you need the blue key card for this area. So it's like, son of a gun, now I gotta go find it. And so you go through, you kill some demons, and it's not like I don't get to enjoy the demon fighting because I have to keep remembering where I am.
And to be fair, like those keys don't show up in the map. So you really have to kind of like be running around and hoping you find them. So
yeah, because your presence opens up where what is seen on the map, and it's just grayed out until then. So yeah.
One thing I like that some games do to like sort that problem out is they have the like tracking heat map of where you've been to like show you on the larger map that like you've been to this area and this area and this area, and it'll like if you go back and forth, it'll show you back and forth like that. I like that.
I think it could have been even better implemented in Doom, but I need to talk about what I'm actually talking about, which at least for Eternal Strands now will tell me the exact direction. Even if it just says, hey, look in this region, it will point you exactly in the right direction. When you get close enough, the marker pops up, and I'm like, praise God, because it was so frustrating running through all that, and I could just go back to enjoying, all right, how can I get from here to there the fastest, most efficient way with my new giant gravity sword and ability to explode myself across the map, and sometimes kill myself, but hey, that's my risk and I'm willing to take it, because it was just
Are you using the tracking flies, the Monster Hunter equivalent tracking flies that somebody didn't realize were in the game until
you mentioned
that's what I mean, because I don't know if they did that in the tutorial. They might have at one point, but it didn't feel like it was like a very clear.
I went back to my footage. It said like, press this thing so we can to guide you back to the base. That's how they said it like back when I played
so
it.
It didn't tell you like that's the objectives. They told you that'll show you where to go back to the base. So I guess I learned the
So I don't know if they changed. I don't know if they changed the wording after, because remember I played that before launch and they patched it. So
I don't think they changed anything. I think that you guys just misinterpreted.
Oh, I should clarify. This part is entirely on me. I'm not knocking the game for it. It's just my stupid brain.
Well, it's just like Monster Hunter. It's literally just like the flies, the insects in Monster Hunter World. Like I was like, oh, and as soon as it did, I was like, oh, the Monster Hunter thing. Got it. Like I immediately recognized what was the inspiration.
I wish I had like remembered that, because usually I'm good with like remembering anything that helps me find something. And for some reason that went out the window with everything else that they were throwing at me. But yeah, so now I can actually finish the game because I can find things easier instead of just scouring every square inch of this place until a marker
think about how I beat that game without ever using that thing.
I can't believe that.
It probably added about 6 hours.
Because you're extremely thorough.
Yeah.
I mean, it probably added about 6 hours to your game time, I think, because I think I finished at 32 or 33 and you're at like 39. So
35 when I beat it.
Okay.
Yeah, so at least just 3 hours. Yeah,
but still, it definitely. It's a lot of time that you lose by not realizing that. And I would have lost my mind. I would have been Googling stuff if I didn't have that, which would not have worked during the review period. I know, but
and then I need to watch how I phrase what I'm going to say next. But I played Avowed. And then I also played Kingdom Come Deliverance too, and I have a lot. Avowed was fun. It was fine.
Did you finish it?
No, I didn't. I barely finished the tutorial, my guy. I got to kind of play through it. I love the combat. I love the way that everything is laid out regarding combat. I like the movement, and I just could not ingratiate myself to the characters or the world in the slightest. By the time my feet hit the pier where I met like the first actual guy, Kai, and got told where to go.
Kai, Sony bought that.
Kai, yeah. And then I talked to the merchants, and I was just like, oh no, they've already lost me now. And that's not even really their fault. I think I was just like really not feeling it because I was already so deep into Kingdom Come that I was just like, I can only have enough in my life for one RPG that's that big at a time. So I wanted to like bow out just for that and not like put any knocks against Avowed, just for that reason.
Are you going to go back to it though?
Eventually. Let's see how this year goes. But Alejandro, do you have something?
Yeah, I feel like if you experience Kingdom Come Deliverance first and then go to About is a steep downgrade, and like just kind of like in first impression, because Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 can be very impressive in like what it does and how it punches up above
They're
its
just
weight.
not doing the same thing, though. That's really the problem I have with people comparing the two together, because Kingdom Come Deliverance is much more akin to saying, oh,
A
this is like
simulator.
Skyrim.
Mm-hmm.
But Avowed is not that. Avowed is not a Skyrim game. It's not. I know that originally when they revealed it, it was put out to be a Skyrim comparison, but they changed the development, they changed the marketing, and that's not what it is. And so I think that you're really better off comparing it to Obsidian's other games, and I think that
it is more of an Outer Worlds.
Yeah, it's much more Outer Worlds. Yeah,
Skyrim, but it is funny because it's just unfortunate that they ended up coming out within like a week of each other.
I'm very glad I got to review Avowed and play it before Kingdom Come, because
that's what Alejandro was like.
Yeah, I'm sure I would feel that way. I'm sure I would have that disappointment of oh, I was so used to this. But even then, like, I don't know. I'm glad that I played it, and I really loved the game.
Yeah, I feel like yes, that you can have that. You can definitely be the thing that you don't really need to compare Avowed to Kingdom Come Deliverance, especially like with it in its aims and based on like what Obsidian has done. Is just unfortunately in the timing, they're literally next to each other.
Yeah,
they're big first person open world RPGs. So
I think in that way they are very similar in that vein, just because of most casual people, it's a first person medieval-ish RPG of any kind automatically lumps them together for like the average audience.
Even the hardcore audience, that feeling is still similar. Yeah. I mean, I played Avowed all the way through, beat it, reviewed it, and everything. And then I had Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 ready to go, like bought and ready to play. But I was like, I don't really want to go into this right now. I just finished Avowed, and that's why, like I talked about last week with Eternal Strands, I was like, I'm going to do Eternal Strands instead, give myself a palate cleanser between, first-person RPGs like that.
And that was smart, because it's like you need a palate cleanser, because otherwise it's like you risk yourself getting burnt out really quick.
A war of attrition, and I've seen that happen to Alejandro, because he'll do weird things like, "Hey, this new game's coming out. I'm going to play every single game in its discography before that one comes out," and then you get back to it, and you're like, "I'm burnt out." I'm like, "Gee, I wonder why."
Well, I did something similar to that, Paul. I don't know if you know my history with God of War, but I'd never played any God of Wars until the 2018 came out, and everyone was like, it's so good, and people were choosing it over Red Dead Redemption 2, and I was offended by that decision. And so I was like, okay, let's see what this God of War series is about. So I went back and played all of the God of Wars in a row, over all 6 games over 3 days. And then I was like, all right, I'm good. I don't want to play God of War 2018 right now.
I played only the main 3 games, and I still...
I think we lost Paul. Paul's got low bandwidth here.
Yeah, your bandwidth's been like really bad.
Am I back? Am I back?
A little bit. You said like the last thing you said was the 3. You were on 3.
Oh yeah, I played the main 3 games and didn't even bother with all 6. So I still felt that after only playing God of War 1, 2, and 3 back to back to back. And that was a nightmare. So
over how long? Because I played all 6 over 3 days.
You know what? I tried to. I think it was about 6 days, because I worked at GameStop at the time, and you got to borrow any game for free for 3 days. And I did that twice because I couldn't quite finish all of them in that time.
Yeah.
That was easily the best benefit to working at GameStop.
I'd owned them all already because I had the PS3 God of War collection, and so I had everything. Yeah, I had all of it.
Yeah, that was a great package.
And then I actually ended up I think the God of War 3 disc was like scratched or damaged. I ended up buying a digital copy of God of War 3 remastered instead, and that's what I did. And I played the remastered version of it on PS4, which was nice because I didn't have to play on the PS3 at that point. And then I think I took like a 6-month break and finally played Ragnarok. Finally played 2018. Yeah, Ragnarok is sitting right over there. I haven't touched it yet.
Still waiting.
Yeah, I'll get there.
Pacing yourself is very important, I think, for that game for sure.
Yeah, there's just too much to play otherwise. But yeah, so I understand what you're saying there, Paul,
Definitely.
For sure.
And I do want to spend the last of my time talking about Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, at least briefly, because what a game that is. I grew up playing like those 2000s PC games that were far too difficult and confusing for me, like Thief. But like that simulation level of things where just every detail is super important. You kind of suck at combat, and unless you just really understand the game at a fundamental level. And Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is like almost nostalgic in that way. And I have to just admire how willing it is to let you suck at literally everything. But where most games kind of punish you, they almost, I don't want to say reward you, but like it's not a slap, it's more of a slap on the wrist when you fail. Like they've planned it out so well that if you suck at everything, the game plays out as if it was intended to do that the whole time. To the extent that sometimes I wonder if something was winnable or not. Sure enough, it was, but I suck at it, and they're just really good writers. So it's just such an enjoyable experience to not feel like you're getting punished at all opportunities in an RPG, because I've played those when like you mess up a check in something and it's like, well, you're locked out of this entire string of content now. Good job, buddy. And I would say a game that even does that, Witcher 3 definitely does that, because like, yeah, sure, it's a different game, but I do appreciate not being locked out of content just because I messed up a single speech check or something. And instead, like, yeah, let's just play it out in a completely different way. Holy crap. Okay, that's fun. You mean we recorded dialogue for this? And I mean, the willingness to let you be actually kind of horrible to people if you want to, I never do. But it's also interesting to feel like when you want to be kind to people, you're not just going to get like rewarded for it. You really have to fight for that concept, because you're in Bohemia. It is the medieval ages, and everything sucks for everybody except the rich people, and even then it kind of sucks for them. But
especially if your name is Hans Capon.
Yeah, seriously. Oh man, freaking Hans.
Did you play the first one, Paul?
I did.
He did.
I did not finish it, but I got through like 75% of it right before that monastery fiasco.
Only before the monastery? You didn't even do the monastery? It's the best quest in the game.
I did not realize it existed until way later.
It's so good.
I just ended up being very close to it, and then I was like, I'm super overpowered. I've done like 3 of these really like sort of bottom of the barrel side quests in a row, which wasn't really their fault, but I was just like, all right, I'm kind of getting tired of this. I've got like 80 hours in this game. I need to go play something different. And then I just never ended up kind of coming back to it.
I have 178 hours in Kingdom Come Deliverance 1, according to Steam. I don't know how much of that is just like restarts and reloads or pausing, because it's been a long time, but yeah,
I believe that game. For sure. It's such a game where you can really sink your entire whole body into.
You do.
But power to them for this becoming basically the definitive way to like, do you want to just like jump in? Go for it. Do you want to play the other one? It definitely ties in. There's a lot of returning characters, but overall, it's better in almost every way than the first one. I really appreciate it. It looks fantastic. It plays almost always fantastic. I hate that lockpicking mini game.
I've not done it yet in this game. I've not lockpicked yet in this one.
I'm glad that it's not as required as it was in 1. Because if you sucked at everything, in the freaking Miller being like, all right, so you want to be a thief, do you? And I'm like, no, but okay. I have no other options right now.
Are you on PC or console, by the way?
Definitely console.
Okay.
Console. But yeah, it was a whole thing with that. But also, I just feel like it's so much easier to be onboarded. The mechanics are so much better explained. I feel like it's more forgiving with both fast travel, less interruptions on fast travel, and more places for you to fall asleep, and not just like, oh cool, I need to save, time to travel across the entire map so I can get to my bed now. Far less of that. Alchemy's a lot easier, the whole thing. So anyway, I'll kind of wrap it up there and let everybody else take it with all of their stuff, but I've had a lot of things to play and a lot of things to share, and that is it for me right now.
I find
Yes.
it interesting you say alchemy's easier because I've only been trying to make one potion so far because it's the only thing I've unlocked because I don't have a ton
Really?
of time into two. And yet like I got a strong one when I did it with the herbalist lady guiding me, and then every other time it's been weak or
Oh.
regular, and I don't know what I'm doing wrong to make a chamomile a decoction.
I
I'm
would say
just
you're either
lost.
boiling it slightly too long because I take it off of the burner right before the sand runs out.
Hmm. Are
And
you are
if
you
you
putting the sand? Are you getting it to a boil and then flipping the sand, or are you flipping the
I
sand and then getting it to a boil?
I usually I pull the thing first and then lower it on so it's immediately boiling from there. So it's a good timer to just flip it over right there.
Okay.
The second thing I suggest is if you just keep failing, there is a perk that makes it far more forgiving. So
Yeah,
even
I've
if you
seen
mess
it.
up, you
Yeah.
get the strong.
I
So
saw
I
that
get that
one.
anyway, but I mostly just make marigold decoctions because I didn't do that for the first one, so I was struggling with
Hmm.
healing all the time. I didn't realize that was like your main source of getting your health back
Yeah,
besides
I was just doing it to practice because I had so many herbs from picking them in the early part. I was just trying to practice and get the
gets
hang of it because in the first game, I was a pro at making savior schnapps. I was making those savior schnapps like you wouldn't believe.
I don't even really try. I don't want to, honestly. I stick to the easy stuff and then I go kill people or like steal their
Yeah,
stuff. I walked through Trotsky Castle and I knocked out one of the knights, stole his really high charisma garb and a key that's like a master key for so many things in that place, and then I
nice.
just steal everything from him.
I need to figure out some of the finer details of things still because like I got into a fight with some bandits,
Mhm.
or rather I found some bandits doing a robbery on the road,
Yep.
and they didn't spot me, so I walked over in a stealth mode and I go over to knock him out, and then
The counter move.
yeah, he was just ready to fight me and I got slashed and yeah.
If you don't have enough strength, it does that, and it is honestly stupidly difficult
Yeah.
to actually succeed because sometimes you can still get the two swords, and then it does a shield immediately after that. Sometimes. So if you don't immediately hit the right trigger and then hit the left trigger, whatever it is on PC, it just fails anyway, and
Yeah,
it's
the blocking
BS.
and the combat is cool. It's just really the knockout. I'm just annoyed that like I'm not succeeding. Like I'm choking him out and then just oh nope, he escapes and they start attacking me. I'm just like, come on.
I've been hearing complaints about fighting wolves. Have you guys had that problem?
It's
I
a
have a story.
BS.
Oh,
I'll tell you that, but I figured out the system for it, and it's not to really attack them. You just have to let them come to you.
And
But I've
guard.
noticed that also the weird parry thing is very strange for like when you actually hit it versus when they're jumping at you. And then if you get it right, you get usually one attack guaranteed, and then you just have to wait till the next one comes at you again.
Yeah.
But yeah, what's your story?
So my story on this one is I'm still really early in the game, so I was just leaving the first village, the village under Trotsky Castle, which I don't remember the name of. But I was leaving,
Trust.
yeah, Troskowitz. I was leaving there to just go and try and find a bed because the innkeeper is still mad at me for the opening of the game, and I'm looking around and I'm like, okay, well, I guess I got to go to another town. So I start heading out, and I want to go find this overturned merchant cart that I hear about,
I
and it's in
remember
the
that.
same direction as some of the other towns and stuff. So it's like, all right, let me head that way. So I saved my game in front of a dice playing table by save exiting because I definitely abused that
Yes.
save and exit
Yep.
option. Won the dice table. I was like, all right, let me go off and go where I want to go. So I'm going, and I travel this whole long journey. Not terribly far, but it's a solid like 3 or 4 minutes of running and looking around at stuff and seeing the sights. And I come across these wolves,
Mhm.
and I'm in the middle of the woods, and they just start attacking me. And so I'm like, I don't have a sword. It turns out I actually did have a sword. It wasn't equipped. I don't know why I had a sword that wasn't equipped, but I didn't think I had a sword. So I'm just running away from it, and I'm like learning the mechanics of blocking and parrying the wolves and keeping them away. But I'm taking damage still because they're wolves, and I'm not attacking them, just trying to run. And I finally escape from the wolves somehow, hurt to high heaven, all these injuries. And I'm like, okay, at least I survived. At least I survived. Let me keep going. I'll get to the town. And then as I'm running, I'm along this like hill. And I guess it was more of a cliff than a hill. And I slid down the cliff and died. and then I ended up right back in front of the dice table.
Oh man, that's awesome.
Oh goodness.
So
Yeah.
So by the way, like before we start recording, I put on Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 again. The thing that I'm left off right now is the tutorial of persuasion, just to give you an idea like how early I am.
Oh, fun.
in that game. So maybe someday, because I'm kind of like because some of the games that I played were similar to you, Paul. I did a little bit more of a vow. I went into like the big main city where something happens to you. Like that's all I'll say.
Paradise.
Yes, in Paradise. Yeah, something happens just as soon as you get into that city. And then I still have like a big, like 3 branches of that quest that I need to talk to someone, go to there. That's kind of like where I stopped with that one. I'm still like enjoying it right now. It's just that I'm distracted. I'm gonna reveal why. I did finish Ninja Gaiden 2 Black 2 days ago because I've been like now knowing that I had an RPG that I like. I really like cleaning up the quote unquote shorter stuff before I just dive into like the long stuff. I just kind of like make my way up to that because I like cleaning stuff. I have very bad OCD in that regard, and I had
your house must be spotless.
Oh, you have no idea. Like I keep it very spotless. And then when I finished Ninja Gaiden 2 Black, which I'll say I enjoyed overall, I would say Ninja Gaiden 2 Black is the strongest in its first half. The second half is a little weaker because the level design is a little bit less. It's still linear, but the levels look less interesting, and you start facing like bigger, chunkier enemies and / demons. That I feel that the most fun thing of Ninja Gaiden 2 Black's combat is when you're dismembering like literally everyone with like reckless abandon. It's really cool how you can like just maim enemies like so quickly with your different weapons. And the bigger the enemy is, the more hits they take, and the less time you have to dismember them. So it feels like you're constantly wailing at enemies that should go should go down much quicker than they do. So there's a little bit of attrition near the end that made it like less fun going over, but overall I still enjoyed it. I still think it's a pretty great game, and I'm glad that. And I will say this, Paul, Ninja Gaiden 2 Black is much easier than Ninja Gaiden 2 but was back in the day. Like the base normal difficulty would have been like considered easy back then, like what they do now. Like if you want to test like what it was like, crank that thing all the way too hard. That was like base difficulty.
Makes more sense.
Yes, some of those boss fights go like down really quickly, which I kind of appreciate because sometimes they have like really weird moves that are hard to block or are hard to block and dodge. So they can't compensate that every slash can like take a huge chunk of the health. So, and because I was still kind of in a character action based kick, I have had communication. I don't know if you've seen this Twitter account. His name is Radic. Like he's a big. I actually have like open DMs with him. He's actually coming to the show sometime this March. Cool. I've been talking with him because he's big on PlayStation. I've been kind of talking to him, and I was talking to him the day before the PlayStation State of Play last week because he's a big God of War fan. I am too, and he had mentioned to me that the PS Plus streaming had gotten so much better that he still said that, hoping for the native version, but the streaming had gotten good. So in that kind of kick, and I knew that it was short, I was like, I want to test this now because I've tested the streaming years before. Paul knows this, that I was like, okay, it's kind of getting better, but I could still feel the delay of the stream. That since I still have my PS3, I would rather play it there. My PS3 is like long packed into my closet right now. So I was like, I want to give this PS streaming a thing. I'm gonna see if Radic is correct. And Paul, I told you to test it yesterday.
Yes.
And tell me what you wrote me. Like
well, I don't actually remember what I said to you. I just remember that it was far better than the
you said you thought it was no. You told me. I thought I could have sworn this was native.
Oh yes, I did. I would have believed that for sure because like there was really no input delay. I felt like I was just playing the game. And that was a really wonderful experience for me because I'd always heard all these things about streaming games and how, the input lag is horrible. Oh, it's not a good experience. And I mean, it basically felt like I'd hooked up a PS2 and I was playing God of War 1. I was like, this is actually enjoyable. Okay.
Yeah. They're not getting enough credit in how much they've improved that stream because I've been trying it from day one when it was the Gaikai, like Joe mentioned earlier, kind of like the Gaikai PS Now, which was like when it was like back in 2014, 2015, back in the PS4 era. I tried it there. Horrible experience. Horrible. It was like, I could really feel it.
Yep, I tried it then too, and when it was in that free beta version of it, and the only thing I ever tried at that point was Overlord, the one with the little minions or
yes.
whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, Overlord. God, it was the Oddworld Overlord, right? I think it was. They've taken strides. I feel like they've because I remember testing it when it just changed to PS Premium out of PS Now, like in like 2022 when they released the 3 tiers. I went back to test it, and I was like, okay, this is feeling better, but I was like, it's still not quite right. And then obviously, like in our some guys over our neck of the woods, Joe, at Season Gaming, or there's Steve and Eric, have been singing the praises of playing through the PS Portal via streaming some of the games. And like Eric specifically, he finished and platinumed the game with 90% of his playtime happening in the Portal. And that game needs like razor thin like reflexes to be able to succeed. So when I heard that, I was like, I have not tested streaming. I still have my same internet, like my same crappy internet. So I kind of want to test it. And then I played and finished God of War 1 in 5 hours. And I was like, that is insane. And that's why I asked Paul, just test it. You have my account, just test it and tell me your experience. And
it's
boom.
It's just a shame that it doesn't actually work on secondary users the way
that kind of
tell everyone it does.
Yeah, like everything else with account share, with console sharing and offline play. But at least like you getting to feel that I knew that I wasn't crazy. That felt it's actually feeling really good. And kind of one reason why I wanted to do this, like I doubt they're gonna like. I'm at the point where I don't believe they will do anything for the God of War 20th anniversary. Everyone has been thinking that they're gonna re-release the old games as kind of like as a celebration for the 20th anniversary of God of War. And me to like escape that kind of like disappointment that wouldn't happen, I just kind of wanted to test it again. And playing through 1, I was like, it's better than nothing, and this is actually much better than I expected. I think they have.
What happens really if they do something now? Are you gonna feel dumb?
I don't mind because the games are so short. I'll play it again and get a platinum. Because those platinums, like I have the platinums in all of the God of War games. Like and I'd be down to. I remember when I showed you the big list, Paul, like all like in alphabetical order of all the platinums from God of War that I got. Yep. So I wouldn't mind doing it. It's like one of my favorite series. So from dating from way back then. But for anyone that has not tried PS Plus, like streaming, and you're like in premium, and because I feel like now we're at the point where I feel there's more consternation just on the idea of streaming that it will never be good enough over actually trying it. I feel the tech has gotten better in some respects. Obviously, internet speeds are gonna like be it's gonna be a determining factor in that. But think about it. I'm in El Salvador. We have garbage internet. Like we don't go higher than 200 megs here. I remember when I told that to Paul, it was like that's like just gimpy. I remember when I went to my aunt's. And I was like, oh my God, I have 500 megs. This is insane. And you're like, that's still so low. It's like, we're used to like 1 gig. Like, what's your internet speed, Joe? Like where you are? Like,
I mean, I have a gig because that's what I want. But I think the service I have actually offers up to 5 or 10.
Yeah. So it's like, you guys can go like way higher than we do. So think about that.
Yeah. Now I live in a place that's like 300. But that's the funny part is I've had no issue.
No problem.
I have to completely walk back everything that I've ever said about that.
Yeah.
Because honestly, as long as you don't have like 4 people
playing
all trying to play online or something, you kind of fine, honestly.
Yes, and so yeah, like so me and you're into 300 megs, me and like 200 megs. I played and finished God of War 1 without any problem. I mean, without any disconnect. Obviously, disconnect could happen if you have like a more congested, more congested kind of like network usage, or if everyone using Netflix at the same time, that can affect because it's constantly like in down streaming. But I tell you, it's like people give it a try, like especially if you're on premium. It's like it's actually much better than I expected. So,
what's your up speed though, Alex? Because so in
20.
Okay, yeah, because I was gonna say where I am right now in the apartment, we have that gig. It's a gig up and a gig down. But in my condo at home, I have a gig down, but like 45 up.
yeah, and it's like that
cable wire.
That up speed has been really rough for me because I went from having 200 ups. I had like both 200 down and 200 up in my home that I was before I moved to where I am currently, and that's been like the biggest downgrade because I used to like edit and post the podcast literally within minutes. And then kind of like I got so used to that then when I moved over here, having to now do that the night before because I kind of have to start uploading from them just to make sure that it hits has been kind of like a I think that we're gonna. I feel we've done well. We're finally like launching right on time, which is it had not happened in a while. So I'm pretty proud of that. But that's kind of like the disadvantage of having upstream. But I feel like with streaming, it's more about downloading than upload speeds. So and it's working fine. So people give it a try. And I can confirm because I asked if I could say this, that this is the only thing that I can say. I have played Monster Hunter Wilds, not beta. I have played the full game. I am reviewing the game next week, and you'll hear about it in the next recording. And that's all I can say. so yeah. And now we can move to the headlines because
hold on, I didn't talk about what I was playing.
Oh yeah, I thought you had. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Because no erasure going on.
Jeez,
sorry about that.
Paul comes back and Joe goes away. Man,
the thing is because you talked about it like immediately some of the games because there's crazy overlap.
I was just chiming in on the Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 conversation there. And so yeah, just what I've been playing. I have been playing Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 like we were talking about. I'm still really early. I literally finished that bandit fight last night and then stopped, saved, and quit and went to bed because it took me like 20 tries because eventually I gave up on trying to knock them out and I just went right over with my sword and started swinging at them. And then there was a random huntsman in the road who just like started helping me with an arrow and shooting the bandits, and so it was like me and a stranger versus these two bandits.
So it's really dynamic. It's a really very dynamic game.
Yeah, I don't know.
And it's funny because sometimes, especially at night, and you're helping the guards fight somebody off, and then as soon as you're done fighting, they turn to you and go, "What are you doing without a torch? You're gonna get arrested like that."
Yeah, I had the same thing happen.
I was helping you.
I had the same thing happen. The guy was like, "You better put that sword away," and I was like, "We were just fighting bandits, Mr. Huntsman, sir."
There's one very specific side quest involving helping an ex-crusader, and it's very busted. I had to look it up to make sure that I ended up doing it right because so many people, like, if you do one thing out of order, like the whole second half of the quest doesn't trigger.
Okay.
But I ended up doing it right, and they were like, and once you get down to like the last guy that's fighting your buddy, just put your sword away, because if you have any weapons out when you finish it, the game takes that as aggression and immediately turns on you if you don't. If you don't have a good save, you'll fight everybody off, you'll barely survive, and he's like, "Oh, so you want to kill me too?" and just immediately start wailing on you, and he will not let you surrender.
Wow.
So it happened to me, but I had to save right before the fight, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna learn my lesson. I'm gonna put my sword away and let it happen.
So I want to ask Paul, because you put so much more time, I want to ask in terms of a stealth attack, and I don't mean like stealth knockout with the choking. I don't mean stealth like stabbing them. I mean, if you want to walk up to someone crouched behind and take your sword and just stealthily start an open combat, you can't really do that, can you?
You can. There is a way to do it.
Okay, because I kept trying it and I kept
if you take your sword out, if you take your sword out and then if you're blocking, and then I think if you hit the attack button while you're blocking, it's an immediate stab move. I did not know that either. I watched a YouTube video that somebody said like 100 tips, and that was one of them, and I was like, son of a gun, because they said like, you can walk up, and if you land that hit on somebody's uncovered face, it's like an instant kill. And so you can aim that outside of combat, and you can just end fights like that.
Yeah, what was happening was I walked up and I would just try to do an attack, and I would just hit the button to swing, and he would stand up and then just like totally whiff because he wasn't engaged in the combat yet, and then we would block into the combat, and then we would start, and I had to fight both of the dudes. So I'm glad to know that. It's really helpful. I'm gonna go and try that out when
I mean, like, it's not even like a knock against them for not explaining one of the like 50 billion things that you can do in that game.
And it wouldn't surprise me if that just was not an intended thing. It just is it's a way the game works, like,
and like you have to work with the game where it is, and you also have to stack the cards in your favor because the game will cheat to screw you over sometimes, and you have to do what you can to kind of like work your way around that. And that's just kind of part of the philosophy of games back in the day like that, and I think that's like works in its favor, especially if you were there to experience games of that time.
I really like the combat in this game. I really liked it in the first game too, but it's so much simpler in this one because If you'll remember the first one, you had a star and it was 5 things. It was like up, left, down, right
I was
down, and
worried
right
about
up.
removing like the bottom 2 of the star and then
making it a
turning the
single
bottom
one.
one into a stab move.
Yeah.
And I was like, realistically, you don't need all of that.
Yeah, because
However,
they basically cut out 3 layers of it, or 2. Like, I guess they cut 2 layers out because they got rid. It used to be a center dot for the stab, and then each layer was an angle, and now it's just the stab is the downward V.
Yes, and I at first I was kind of sad that you're basically missing out on your actual like lower attacks. I do like that they kind of retooled like your combos into having like lower attacks. If you pull off the combo, it'll do one of those. So it doesn't feel like I'm missing it too much. However, how many people have master strikes against you? I haven't encountered it myself, but supposedly at like the higher levels of like enemies and stuff, you just like you miss out on so many different ways you can actually attack, because if you attack from the opposite side, they're just going to instantly like counter you essentially to get that guaranteed damage. So that's potentially going to be frustrating if I experience it later on, but we'll see.
We'll see how that goes. But I just really enjoy the combat. I wanted to get good, just like I was redoing certain things to get good. The very first combat encounter that you have, at the top of that hill, when you're naked and you just like pick up a sword, and it's you naked in a sword fight. You know what I'm talking about in the prologue.
Honestly, I'm not remembering that, because I remember the big siege, and I'm remembering. Oh yeah. Okay, I remember what you're talking about.
Yeah. So the first real combat you get into, like that, you're naked with the sword. I made a save right before it happened. I just kept reloading until I beat the guy with the sword, and like.
Wow.
Yeah, and eventually
I failed it, and it just moved on.
Yeah, if you fail it, it just moves on, but also it like eventually just times out and it moves on. Like there's nothing for winning the thing, because I beat it and it eventually just did the same thing as when I failed it. I was just curious if I could do anything different, because like you said, it's so dynamic that it accounts for wins and losses a lot of the time. And that one, again, that's a prologue. It's literally the first like hour of the game. It didn't account for anything different there, but that was fine. I just wanted to practice, because it is the kind of combat system that you really need to get good at in order to be successful and make it through this game and fight multiple enemies. I mean, just fighting those 2 enemies in the bandits in the woods. If I didn't have that random huntsman guy there, that would have been hard. That would have been tough.
Honestly, yeah. I'm really glad that I'm enjoying my time with it. I'm probably gonna keep playing it tonight.
Yeah, me too. I'm loving it. It's fantastic.
I'm gonna give it a good college try tonight, like for real. Like I really want to test that, because all the praise that I've been hearing almost from everyone, at least I want to see a little bit more of it. So at least I could kind of get it, even though I still want to do about first, because again, I prefer the going from lower to higher, like when it comes to
Avowed,
that. So.
If you're not going to be a total completionist for Avowed won't take you hundreds of hours. I mean, with me doing, I think I did everything in the game except a few treasure maps. It took me 60 hours or so.
Yeah,
so
I've come to terms that I'm never going to be a completionist when it comes to Xbox. I just don't like achievements as much.
Yeah.
But when it comes to, if I was playing Avowed on PlayStation, I would have considered like a platinum on that one.
It's funny you mentioned that though, because when I finished the game, the achievements were not live yet, and so when the game went live, it populated some achievements, and I went through and I was really confused as to why I didn't have certain achievements. I was like, I guess I'll just go and reload the game, just to see if it'll trigger all my achievements. And then I reloaded for whatever reason after the final boss. It has an autosave where you can just run around in the final arena with no boss there and nothing going on. And it gave me credit, and it just popped all the achievements that hadn't popped from before. So I got all the ones that I'd actually earned, which was good.
So you got a ping, 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 like all at once.
It just kept going up. Yeah, on the Xbox app screen or whatever it was. Yeah, so that was cool, and I got those. But yeah, I agree with you. I don't really care about achievements either, and I think you'll enjoy Kingdom Come and Avowed. I think Avowed is a really great game that is worth some attention to it, even though it came out in the worst Horizon style. Yeah, it's like a Horizon style release where it just came out with the games that are going to overshadow it for some reason, even though it doesn't deserve.
Yeah, and in this case, like it got overshadowed the week before, instead of like Horizon that always preempted like the big things, kind of like in an opposite way. And obviously, you mentioned that you finished Eternal Strands. I got to chat with you a little bit, like when you were like near the end. And obviously, when you mentioned last week that whole thing, that is how I convinced Paul to go back to it and finish it, because I kind of want him to finish that game. So
yeah, I really liked Eternal Strands. Eternal Strands was a lot of fun to play. It was a little janky, more than I would have hoped for in certain ways. I felt like some of the targeting was a little wonky with things like your spells when you're casting them, but it was still really fun to play, and it was a really cool story and a really cool world. I would love to talk to Mike Laidlaw as creative director of that and just see what the inspiration was for it and where they're gonna go, because it definitely leaves it open to like keep expanding this world. And I would love to know how well it did in terms of sales, because it's so like unknown. I feel like so few people know about this game, even though it had an IGN preview with Travis, and even though it's got, you know, a decent review score. I think it's like a 7 right now,
75. Yeah, it's 75 on OpenCritic and 68 on PS5 on Metacritic, which feels weird, whereas it's 77 on every other platform, which sounds more right. Yes,
I did notice, I don't know if you did, but I noticed some weird problems where I had to restart the game once or twice because I was having this crazy frame rate problem where the game just like the frame rate never it just didn't catch up. It never caught up.
Actually, I did mention it in the review, like when I was like in one of like the underground place where you fight like the fire dude, like the big fire dude with the hammer. In random spots, the frame rate would just stank with nothing happening. It wasn't like I would understand if the frame rate would go down, like if it was like you using like all your spells at the same time, but it wouldn't happen.
I was in camp. And the frame rate was just trash for some reason, and I restarted. And it was fine. It only happened once or twice.
Did it happen to you that at any point in camp that you loaded in and then no texture loaded and it looked like it was on fire? Did that happen to you?
Yes, many times.
That's so funny.
It only ever happens when you came back from Cassidon's hold, though. It never happened any other time. Only when I'd go from the camp to the hold and back, it happened.
Yeah, look at my video review because I was able to capture that, and it was part of like my critiques of the technical side of it. But
but overall, I really enjoyed the game, and I hope they make a sequel to it. I hope they have some time to refine it, and hopefully they have a publisher who doesn't like back out on them this next time, and they actually get to keep their money flowing to afford things.
what I find funny is that you told me that for you, like Eternal Strands would be more like a 7.5.
Yeah.
And what's funny is because I gave it an 8, you scored it the same way. Like you said, you would score Outlaws the same way that I gave Outlaws an 8. And I feel like kind of like one of the reasons why I understand where that 7.5 kind of comes from, because remember, I went into this here where I love Shadow of the Colossus a lot, whereas you don't. You have like
a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like me getting that high of them nailing like those fights with like the big with the big bosses, and dare I say they're more fun than even in Shadow of the Colossus, because there's like more ways that you can break them down.
Shadow of the Colossus isn't fun.
The skill issue for Wander. I mean, if he just had that explosive spell to just throw himself up onto the Colossi, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Exactly, like because in Shadow of the Colossus, it's just strictly the puzzle. Like you have to bring them down in a specific way.
So boring. I hate puzzle games.
That's the thing. Like,
it's a puzzle on a Colossus. Like that's not fun.
And it's different. Like and that hit different in 2005 than it did in 2018 when the remake kind of happened. And it was like,
I never liked puzzles.
So exactly, like if you never liked puzzles, that was not gonna be okay for you. So, and I did, and I really appreciated like its set dressing, its scale, like it's really emotional, like how could I say, it's like a wordless non-verbal story that really like allowed you to interpret it in a very interesting way. That's the thing that I really love. It's a very artistic game.
I think somebody once described it the best way to me, and I'm going to heavily paraphrase it as it is the game with absolutely zero fat for its detriment and its praise.
Yes.
It is absolutely nothing except exactly what they wanted to show. So I was like, I respect it. I also would not want to spend $60 to $70 on a game like that.
Yes.
In this day and age.
I think I just got it for free from the PS
Plus thing.
Exactly.
And they sold it for 40, so they understood. And like when it was sold on PS4, they sold it for 40 because it's a very simple game, especially for what you expect. But it was like it helped push the medium into like a very artistic direction that obviously that's the beauty of art. I make fun of your garbage take, Joe, but the truth is like when a game is like it's considered art is supposed to be loved by some and hated by many. Is like that's kind of like what makes it art, because it's like open to like your liking and interpretation. So, and I feel like Eternal Strands like gamifies like the strengths of Shadow of the Colossus while embellishing it with like the other stuff and giving me that high. Like to me, like that high of being able to bring down a monster or something by climbing around, and in this case having all the tools available to you. That's it works so cool despite the clunkiness that I even mentioned. So it's kind of funny.
The upgrade system is fun. The upgrade system
it's very
is
addicting.
Fun
very
to
addicting.
Upgrade your stuff, and it's not that hard to get enough stuff, especially when you get later and you can start trading for supplies and things like that, and you can like buy your upgrade pieces. Because like I hated fighting the Forge, the Ark of the Forge, so I just bought the Ark of the Forge pieces that I needed to make the fanciest version of the
I love that you can do that later on, kind of like you open the trading so you can get the, like if you want, you have the weapon and the armor that you want to upgrade, and it tells you like the material that you kind of need,
and you've got so many supplies as it is, because you have so much stuff from collecting it all throughout the game, that I never really was running out of supplies. If I needed to buy something, I could just buy it from the trader with the by trading in the other stuff that I didn't need. So I really loved Eternal Strands. Great game. Or good game, great game in some ways, but held back with some issues. And
it would be awesome if we could get to talk to Mike later, right? Like if that could happen. So cool. And then finally you played A Way Out, because you're continuing your girlfriend like sharing gameplay experiences.
Our co-op journey. So not finished it yet. We're in the game somewhere. I've heard that it's small. We've played it for a few hours, like 3 hours or so. I don't know. It could go on for another 12 hours, and then people could have been lying to me, or it could end in 20 minutes. I really don't know how big this game is, but we're having a good time with it. She really enjoys these co-op games with me. She just likes to spend time together, and I like spending time together with her, of course. And it gives us a fun little thing to do whenever she's got the time and she's not busy with her own work and whatnot. So we've been playing that. It's cute. It is not as innovative as It Takes Two is, of course, having just played It Takes Two a few weeks ago.
It came before.
It was just like it came before. It came a few years before. It Takes Two is really like this slew of different ideas and creativity and mini games, and A Way Out is kind of just like your standard co-op work together thing. There's not as many mini games, there's not as many gameplay styles. There's no point where you're bouncing around gliding on a fidget spinner or something like that. Like that sort of creativity is just not in here, but I wouldn't expect it to be for the setting. But I like it. I enjoy the game. It's an interesting story, and I look forward to seeing how it ends. And then obviously Split Fiction comes out, so it'll be fun to play that one together.
That's 2 weeks away. And they just announced that the friend code that they're giving, it's gonna be like cross-platform. So like if you have a friend that wants to play, so if you're on PS5 and want to play with a PC friend, you can send them the code, and then also vice versa. I think that's really nice. So, and now we can go into a few headlines. Are here not too many like earth-shattering headlines right now, as we're still waiting on like bigger releases. Now that we kind of went through like an initial onslaught, despite the fact that I think it was either today or tomorrow that the Yakuza game came out, like the Pirate one. That I keep forgetting.
It's out tomorrow,
Okay.
Like a Dragon Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii is out tomorrow. It's sitting at an 81 Open Critic right now.
And a 79 meta, so...
Doing pretty good there. Not anything I wouldn't expect from the Like a Dragon franchise. So I'm excited to play it next
I like the demo. I enjoy that. I enjoy what I play about the demo, because it's just, the combat is really ridiculous. You saw a clip that I showed you, Paul. The one where he like fighting, and then you, with a violin, like brings all like the gods of the sea. Just like...
chaos, absolute chaos. And
that's Majima for you. That's Majima.
Oh yes, and I love that that game just has no chill. That game has like it's just you're like literally you're facing a group of gangsters that taking that inflation is like screwing everything up. So he wants to mug you, and then you just kind of like clown them with like a god of sharks. It's like
it's funny. The whole Like a Dragon franchise in some ways feels like it has no chill, but it actually has a lot of chill if you
the key, right?
Take the time to do it.
It's like it handles both.
Pendulum.
Yeah, it's like the most melodramatic story ever, and then it's like the wackiest thing too.
You also have to have capacity for both. It really is like that One Piece situation where you will see the goofiest crap you've ever seen, and then the pendulum will swing, and you will be crying over a man with like a freaking flamingo attached to his back, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is so horrible. And glorious at the same time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it really is. So,
yeah, I'm still debating if I want to play it immediately, because I kind of like, I've given up on the ghost that I'm gonna like play, like do that my psychosis of playing everything up to one. I kind of want to just jump into one and just finish
it's not
it.
that hard to do. You just have to not platinum everything. You have to not,
that'll be easy.
Sickness.
Yes, I'm glad that I don't have that kind of thing, because I feel you have it worse than I do, even though I have more platinums than you right now.
Only with certain games do I have it worse. And
yes.
I'm gonna get to Infinite Wealth in June, and I won't be done with Infinite Wealth until September because I'm gonna end up platinuming it, I'm sure.
Yeah, hopefully there's nothing big happening around June or July, like so you can play it uninterrupted. So
Mafia, the old country.
yeah, that would be the big one. So yeah, that's still like the rumor that is either July or early August. That's kind of like where it's where they think that game's gonna hit. Now that we know that Borderlands is September. So, and now into the headlines real quick with this one. So the first one, that it's basically a pack together of headlines, because there was like a Shuhei Yoshida, the former head of PlayStation first party worldwide studios, that then went to head kind of like their indie initiative, kind of like retired from PlayStation, has been doing the interview, the interview circle,
circuit,
the circuit. So he did the kind of funny, he did the min-max, and now he did it at LSM, which is the Patreon that me and Joe pay for. So, and that's been taking quite a bit of being covered by many people. I never thought they would even give it the time of day, because they're how they feel about the founding member of that Patreon. But yeah, a few of the headlines. So one of them, I had no choice. Shuhei Yoshida says he had to take PlayStation's indie role or leave. When that first call happened, the world was on fire. Everyone was like, oh, they really kicked this guy off. Like, it's like, and especially now that we know the situation of PlayStation first party, that they have nothing, and you can kind of trace back to when, like, what got canceled or green lit that has not come out started happening, and everyone put two and two together, and there was and then everyone was like, we want the head of Jim Ryan, all that. In that same interview, Shuhei kind of like softened up and kind of explained kind of what happened, which is that that was kind of like a casualty of PlayStation globalizing, and the head of PlayStation that was in Europe, which was Andrew House, who retired back in like 2017, kind of gave the reins to Jim Ryan to kind of complete that globalization team. And then when he kind of like took over, Jim Ryan's kind of like goal was that Shuhei and the old guard had been there for too long, and he kind of wanted like a fresher, younger experience to kind of like take the brand further, because they had been there for like too long. So that's kind of why Shuhei no longer had that position, but they kind of fostered in him the idea that maybe he could take over indies. And while that sounded like a demotion, he felt that PlayStation needed to like strengthen their indie initiative, because it fell off the wayside after early PS4, and they created that indie role for him. It was just him. He didn't have to oversee anything, and he could get like support for anything. I think that's how a lot of the PS Plus indies kind of happen. So obviously we know that the results of the change in first party is that their first party right now is pretty anemic, but it didn't sound like he was like too hard on that, and he's still gonna be doing like indie work now that he's like retired from PlayStation. It never sounded like
he was too hard on it. You know, in all the time that he has talked about things, it never sounded like he viewed it as a demotion. Even if he was forced to do it, it doesn't sound like he viewed it as any sort of a demotion. Even if it comes across that way, even if it might technically have been. But to him, he seemed happy to switch into that role. And he's always been that personable, out there kind of guy, and dealing with those smaller studios and trying to help them succeed is very much in line with every. And I don't know Shuhei Yoshida personally, but obviously from every public persona he's ever put forward, it's that he's just a nice guy who wants people to play more games, and that's
quirky good. Quirky games specifically, because he then kind of like the next headline was like Japan studio closed because the AA market has disappeared, says Shuhei Yoshida. He kind of mentioned that when Sony closed Japan studio in like 2021 was kind of like when they were doubling down on that we need the big AAA games, the big like expensive games and all that, and Japan studio was always a AA team. They were always doing like the interesting games, the Tokyo Jungles, the Puppeteers, the Gravity Rushes, the Last Guardians, and things like that, which right now would be
played any of them.
Yes. Yeah, because you have AAA brain rot. That's why. So, and then he was kind of mentioning that the games that Japan studio would make would be considered more like in the indie side, and they kind of like the closure of Japan studio allowed a lot of those teams to kind of go out there and kind of like find a way to kind of get those ideas that they were wanting to get greenlit at PlayStation, but couldn't because PlayStation wanted it to be like a AAA big thing. And you see a few of those like spiritual successor, what they were planning kind of already out, kind of like Slitterhead from last year was like from the director of Gravity Rush 2. And he also
created that's the horror game where you like possess people and okay.
Yeah. Apparently that was like that concept was pitched to PlayStation, and
honestly, I wish that concept was a little better shown in the actual previews and trailers, because all I saw it as at first was like a cheap Souls-like knockoff again. Yeah. That's probably why nobody played it, honestly.
Yeah, and it wasn't even a Souls-like.
The concept was way more interesting when you actually found out what it was, and I found out what it was like 3 months after the game came out, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. So. And then there's this other game called Ratatan, which is kind of like the spiritual successor to a PSP game called Patapon, which Patapon 3 was just recently added to the PS Plus Premium. And it was like those ideas are kind of like existing now that are kind of like in the indie side, which it was Kim kind of like overemphasizing that maybe that's for the AA market to like quote unquote come back, because it's like the indie games are kind of getting bigger now. They're kind of like getting to like where the AA market kind of faded away for a while, because it was just indie or AAA. There was like nothing in between. And it's slowly kind of creeping up that way. But I know one thing that this headline kind of like rubbed people the wrong way is that people point at Nintendo, that is like a lot of the games that Nintendo put out are AA. A lot of those clears, and they sell a lot, and a lot of people like flock to that. So it's not that the market doesn't exist. There's still have a market to be served. It's just PlayStation just wants the big AAA stuff that now takes forever, and they don't put out anything. So. And then another headline was From Software didn't want Sony to publish Dark Souls, as it was disappointed by how Demon Souls was treated. So they were kind of saying how like Demon Souls was being made for the PS3, and when they were like demoing it, like for the executives and all that, they didn't quite get it, and they thought it was like a bad game that would have no resonance. And eventually, Shuhei said that after he played more, he kind of got it, but at that point, the heads of America and Europe kind of passed on it. So that game had to be published by Namco and Atlas everywhere else. And then when they realized that Demon Souls won GameSpot Game of the Year in 2009, he said that he showed it to the execs. They're like, "Oh, look what we let go," and they were like, "Ouch, we really messed up that." And then they kind of went back to From Software and be like, "Hey, wanna work with us again? We're actually gonna publish your next game." And they're like, "Nah, you treated us bad." And they went to Bandai Namco, and that's where Dark Souls kind of happened. And it took like a lot of money and convincing for them to bring them back for Bloodborne. Everyone always blames Shuhei for this one, and he kind of finally told his story, like his side of the story, because everyone was like, Shuhei Yoshida thought it was bad, and that one was let go. And then he kind of said, "It's like, I thought it was bad initially until I played a little bit more, but by the time that I played more, like the decisions in the other side of the company were already made." So, and because that was being made in Japan, they kind of like pointed at him because he was a Japan guy. And finally, Yoshida says that Xbox games on PS5, a win for PlayStation owners, with PlayStation owners get double like the games now that you can get on Xbox. So that's kind of something like what those headlines are. Any quick thoughts about any of this?
No, it all makes sense to me. It's just interesting to hear from Shuhei on this. That's all.
I like that he actually spoke about it. He feels like he's too polite to actually badmouth anybody. So I feel like even when he says what he does say, even if it's in defense of any of the actions of certain people that we've talked extensively about on the podcast,
that
I feel like I don't believe a word that it comes out of his mouth because of that, unfortunately. Where he would strike me as, you know what, I see it as like the company does need somebody to take over this. I will do it, and I will see it through, and I'm not going to see it as a demotion. Well, of course you would, Yoshida. Of course you would. But I feel like that's also like, hey, do this or we're firing you, essentially, because he did admit there was no other option. It's either you take over this or that's it.
Yeah,
that's what kind of question is, what kind of choice is that, you know?
And all because they reorganized the organization, because they eliminated his office when he was like before. So
it's just, I mean, also from Mr. Ryan, having the idea of, hey, this guy's been in his position too long.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah. And it just so happened that he oversaw the period where like first party actually became a thing that people started caring.
I'm actually seeing some great similarities to a certain thing that's happening in a certain country's government right now, where certain duo of individuals have decided to fire a string of people very important to a certain department of said country, and then immediately wanted to bring them back because said people were very important. Gee, I wonder if that's.
I wonder which country is that. That may be
that
may be United, but
where if you have people in a position for a very long time doing something, maybe find out what they do before you just decide to get rid of them. That's all I'm saying, guys. Anyway, yeah, that's all I have to say about that. I have more potentially to say about the next thing, but that's about it for right now. Yeah.
Yeah. So, despite his big success, next headline: Marvel's rivals, American-based director and others have been laid off.
Insane.
So, yeah, this one was like this one created a big ruckus because it was like, isn't Marvel Rivals like one of the biggest breakout hits in multiplayer, like from like last December right now, that even a freaking The Thing character reveal can be seen by 2.3 million like that quick. So it's like, why are there layoffs happening? And then we learned that this was just a team of 6 people that like based in Seattle. The bulk of the development team is over in China in NetEase, like in NetEase headquarters. So it's not like they completely laid off like the big team that was making this game. Obviously,
like so sketchy when it was just like the entire Seattle team's been laid off.
Yeah.
And you're like, holy crap. And I mean, even people that we trust the word of. You had your Paul Tassies and your Gene.
I mean, 6 people is still people, though. I mean, the whole team is gone, even if it's only 6.
Specifically, I did hear that what they did was something that was more focused on before release and after release.
Support.
It's not uncommon to either feed them back in or they get let go to go on to other projects. I have no bearing on that because I don't know for sure how that works, but supposedly there's more to it than at first glance, because I was just like, something doesn't add up for me, Chief. I'm gonna find out what the deal is.
It felt like self-sabotage, because like you're laying off the entire team that it's gonna like vital for your success, but then they kind of explain a little bit more that they were like more of a support role, even though they help with designing some of the maps and some of the systems. So still important. It still kind of sucks.
The guy that got fired was just like, yep, on to the new things. He even like in his post said something about like, yeah, my next thing I'm going to be working with this guy. I was like, so clearly he had a plan for this, which either like he was planning very well outside of what he does, or maybe his job is already like that. So I mean, it's the gaming industry. It's always like that. Am I right?
Yeah. Yes. But, that's part of it, is that's how the industry works, is there are always churn, and it's unfortunate because I think that you lose institutional knowledge in some ways if you have too much churn, but it's just that is how it works. And the people who work in there, generally speaking, I think they know that when they choose to get involved in the industry at this point. You know, it's not like it's an unknown factor of, am I going to have this job forever? Probably not, knowing how video game companies have been working forever.
What's funny is that when I heard that, like I didn't feel like too like shocked about this one ever since like Insomniac suffered layoffs after Spider-Man 2, their fastest selling game ever, because it's like, no one's safe. And then I saw that one, I was like, another Marvel stuff, they laid off. Immediately my thought was like, probably too expensive. that was kind of my thought. I was like, well, that sucks. That's why I don't want more Marvel games. But I want to see, like, let's see how Marvel Rivals does right now after like this layoffs, and if anything materially changes about that game. And that's kind of how we will know like how if they really lose someone vital by laying off that Seattle team. I know, like, I was following Daniel Amar, which is kind of like the Asian and analyst, that he was kind of mentioning that he's been noted that NetEase has been like really cutting off on China investments. Like NetEase was the one that had the team that made Visions of Mana last year, and they closed that team right when the game got out. Like literally the game released and they closed that team. So, and that was considered kind of like an international investment, despite the fact that the team was in Japan, but it was outside China. So it kind of felt both that and this team for Marvel Rivals kind of fall under kind of like that international investment that apparently they're kind of scaling back to just kind of like just double down on in-house China development. So we'll see. It still kind of sucks that layoffs are still kind of happening, but I do find funny that a lot of people, when this was the big headline, the consternation was huge. cooked in. I even said it, cooked industry when I shared it.
That's
like
because it's such a ridiculous thing to hear that a team that of a hugely successful game was suddenly let go. You can understand why that's the initial response.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Sort of especially when everything else around it has already been far more depressing.
Yes.
Like, oh yeah, we did this too. Okay.
Oh yeah, because that's just where we are. Then another headline that's a little quicker. Pokemon Presents is coming back next week on February 27th, the day before Monster Hunter. I know that Paul, you shared kind of like a alleged leak of what could be there.
Yeah, I did.
That would be insane if it's actually true. So apparently, Joe, I didn't share it to you. There's rumors that the old Pokemons, like red, blue, yellow, like those, like the classic ones, will actually be announced in this thing. So, and I know with Paul, I was kind of
what kind of announcement
for Switch, like
it's going to be like a master collection
just like a veil,
of the first 3 generations as like a collection to buy.
Oh, good.
On the Switch.
That's a smart thing.
That's supposedly. I'm of the mind of like, there's no way they're going to give this away more than one at a time like that. I mean,
they could make money.
Diamond and Pearl, and they printed money once again.
Yeah.
But now,
I mean, it depends on what they're doing. If they're literally just releasing ports of them on Switch, then I would say, put all 3 together and charge $70 is the Nintendo move.
I feel like they could do that with $70 with literally one game, change absolutely nothing about it,
and they would sell. Yeah, because that would be like the nostalgia card that would carry that franchise really hard. And I know the Arceus sequel still hasn't been like talked about since it's announced. Maybe it could show up there. Like we're getting close to the Switch 2, so I don't know what could be shown there. So I know kind of like that leak was kind of saying that they probably got it like from
CA, right?
CA
going to be
CA would have to be like the big thing they show there. So
that's cool. ZA should be fun. I like Legends Arceus, so.
Yep. So next headline, a new Tony Hawk game reveal is being teased in Black Ops 6 for March 4th, 2025. Another kind of sub-headline for that, a skater claims he's in a new Tony Hawk remaster about to come out. So these kind of headlines kind of happen like separately. At first, the one about the skater, and then this one kind of happened with a tease that happened in Black Ops 6, like in the war. I think it was in either a multiplayer map or Warzone that you could see kind of like the skater logo, and it said March 4th. So Pro Skater 3 and 4, maybe, because that would be next, and I would love that.
It would make sense. They did 1 and 2 in
together. 2020.
They, like burn that group to the ground or something that made it.
They merged the Vicarious Vision into Blizzard.
Yeah, it's merged in with Blizzard.
I was trying to remember what happened.
I like that idea. That'd be cool. I think I have the from PS Plus as well. I have the remaster collection, but I have not played it yet. I loved 1 and 2 as a kid. I don't think I ever really played 3 and 4, so that one's not.
3 is the greatest skating game of all time. I still stand by that. 3 was where it really picked. So if they could bring that back with the same mechanical depth how it was back in PS2, that game would be huge. Like 3 is where that franchise peaked.
I think I would play it for about 20 minutes and go, yes, I remember this.
Yeah, and then move it to something else.
I'll go play something else.
You have to be in the mood for,
Yeah, I think I've moved past those, unfortunately. But man, during that time.
Yeah. Playing as Darth Maul or playing as Spider-Man, kind of like skating around. It was like, those were the times.
Remembers the Toy Story themed.
Yeah.
Oh, no, it wasn't just Toy Story. It was like all the Disney stuff themed skate game.
Oh man, from PS1, right? I think, or was it PS2?
I think it was PS2 actually. I rented it. I remember that.
I know there was a crossover between.
It was like a kid Tarzan. It was really weird and eclectic.
Yeah, but hey, I mean, I'm glad that Tony Hawk could come back, because when they merged Vicarious with Blizzard back in 2021, I was like, yeah, that's the end, because Vicarious Vision, the best remake team they had, merged now into like a Blizzard hell forever. But hey. Maybe one of the good positive things of that Microsoft acquisition, that they realized these guys did this thing. Let's get them out of Blizzard and do this. So, another headline: Elder Scrolls 6. Bethesda offers fans once in a lifetime opportunity via charity auction to like develop an NPC of their design to show up an Elder Scrolls 6.
Extremely stupid.
I'm like, I think what makes this like more dumb fun is the fact that they have not talked about Elder Scrolls 6 officially like at all.
Somebody pointed out that they're just literally using the exact same screenshot that they
from the reveal in 2018.
How many years ago was it now?
2018. So it's been 7 years.
Years ago.
Yeah. So the funniest thing about this to me is if you remember the Bitcast conversation that I had with Hogue this past week, where he was saying how what he hates about Kickstarters is when their rewards for the Kickstarter backers impact the game by doing things like designing characters or naming the ins. And I'm just like, oh, so this is just that.
Just not in a Kickstarter.
Gonna be one of the biggest, and what's going to be one of the biggest games ever when it releases. They're just doing it that way for charity, for the children,
Yeah, I have to believe that if they're already kind of offering this, maybe this game is finally sooner than later now, because unless they really want to get those designs super early and it's still kind of years out.
I don't know. I mean, they scanned in that Skyrim granny lady like a decade ago. I feel like. I know it wasn't actually a decade.
The Skyrim grandma, right? Like the 80-year-old like player Skyrim that she was.
Yeah. She's literally scanned in and in the next Elder. Like she's gonna have a character model in the next game because they're like, we don't know if we're gonna get this out before you're no longer with us, ma'am.
Man, so. that would really suck, man. But I just want to see like how they do an Elder Scrolls 6. I can't believe the Skyrim was 14 years ago, which is insane to think about, and it could be probably 17 years if this comes out like in 2028 or 2027. Man, like I feel old.
I think it's more like 2030, but who knows?
Yeah, we'll be closer to 40 at that
Dropping
point.
Dropping my son off at middle school.
That's what's funny, Paul. Now that you have your kid, you have a real big semblance of how long games take to make now. As soon as you start seeing,
very clear to me now.
Yeah. Because the big question now, Paul, like when does Kingdom Hearts 4 come out? Because that was like announced before you were even expecting to be a father.
Yeah, so. I think that'll be next year. I think that unless they're running into development trouble, I think that Kingdom Hearts 4 will be next year. I think they've had enough time on it, and I think that
it will be 4 years cooking by then if it comes out next year, and they're not announcing anything right now.
Because if you think about the way that Square works, like they had 16 and then they had 7 Rebirth, and so now they'll have an opening for something else before 7, remake.
Yeah. Of announced projects, it's that and Dragon Quest 12 are like the two games that we know have already been announced and could happen at any moment.
We have literally seen more of Kingdom Hearts 4 than we have of Dragon Quest 12.
Yeah, Dragon Quest 12 we only have seen a logo, and we know that they're trying to make it an adult thing. I don't know what that means. So, M-rated Dragon Quest would be weird for like one of like the most feel good like warm blanket RPG series. So
it's really, I mean, Dragon Quest 11 is really the game that got me into turn-based JRPGs again after like playing Pokemon as a kid and never really being interested in turn-based games since then.
It always takes one.
Liked 11. Yeah,
it takes that special one to kind of get you like in the mood of that one.
I don't put 11 in my top 10 of all time kind of list because it's still just it's a fine game, but it was so good that it like showed me what a turn-based game could be, and that's what gets some.
That's how you got to play Metaphor. So I know, Paul, you like Dragon Quest 11. So
I did, yeah.
Yeah, it's just too long.
I mean, not pretty far. I got like decently far in like the first few arcs before my system reset itself.
Yeah, I remember.
And that where Dragon Quest 8 remake is. Sorry, Paul.
Yeah. Oh man, I would love that one because everyone praises like the living crap out of Dragon Quest 8. It's on 3DS. No, get it out of the 3DS. Put it on PS4 at the very least.
Yeah.
So, Dragon Quest 1 and 2 coming this year. I know Paul is out on those HD remakes because he hates the first-person combat.
Man. I did not like what I experienced of that 3, and I feel like every middle of that just breaks the heart. It's like that moment in Fairly Odd Parents.
Fairly Odd Parents.
Where he like rips the paper and the person goes, it's like that where I'm just like, yeah, you know what? It's not actually that good. Like wonderful Jade, our mutual friend Alejandro, just goes, ah!
Yes, it was so funny when you like texted me when you started playing Dragon Quest 3. They were like, I just got into my first battle, and then you sent me that meme of, I don't know if it was American Dad or whatever it was, or someone that just has like a mortified face and just walks away. So I was like, oh no, you hated that combat.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah, I still enjoy that game despite the fact it was the game that killed my PS5. Or I was playing. Well, technically the last game I played on my PS5 was Dragon Age: The Veilguard. Because that same day that I was trying it, I got the Power Surge.
The game that killed Dragon Age and your PS5.
Yeah, so double classic. Final two headlines. The most ambitious survival game ever made, Dune Awakening, finally has a launch date of May 20, 2025. God damn it, like May is getting like really packed.
I forgot that already come out.
Yeah, it was a beta. I think it was a beta or like an alpha or something. So
I like those movies. I don't have any affinity outside of it. I probably won't play this unless it's renowned as the greatest game of all time. That's where I'm at on this one. There's just no time.
Yeah, it being a survival game like hurts me because I would love a game in the Dune universe. But yeah, in the Dune universe, yeah. But I feel like the coolest thing about Dune is like its impactful story and kind of like its themes and kind of like how it weaves it all together. And they specifically said that this is more about kind of like the soldier side than kind of like even touching on any of the religious side of the Paula treaties and all that. So I'm like, that's like a bummer because I feel like you could make a really sick big RPG game in like the Dune universe that touches on that.
Yeah.
But I want to hear. I'm curious to hear. I don't know if I'm gonna play, especially because I know there was another game on the 23rd that comes out. Oh, Onimusha. It's the Onimusha 2 remaster comes out on the 23rd, and then the week after is the Lost Soul Aside and Elden Ring Night Rain, a double feature on May 30th. So, and May 8th is the Clay game that I forget the name from last week's State of Play.
The something walk, Midnight Walk.
Yeah, Midnight Walk. Yes. So May's pretty stacked, both things considered. Last year was just Hellblade. Like notable releases for May. And finally, this may be of interest to you, Paul. Ubisoft will reveal Rainbow Six Siege X, a new era for the game at a showcase next month. So
I am very curious how you're going to like overhaul a game that's 10 years old this year.
Yeah.
But like at the same time, I still like subscribe to some of the For Honor stuff, and like they're still putting out content. They're putting out new stuff. Like I don't know how they carved their way into that like corner where Ubisoft is like, yes, that is acceptable. Not all of this, for some reason. And same thing with like Siege, despite how it's like unrecognizable from what it was. They're still going to like, we're just going to redo this whole thing. No sequel, but we will like revamp the entire way gameplay works. They said that there's going to be like environmental hazards. You can run while you're rappelling. You can jump. Apparently, it's all over the place right now. But I'm very curious and I'm interested because Siege is kind of like, it's decent. It's just not for me anymore. But a big shakeup might be exactly what I was hoping for it. So.
Yeah, I bought Siege on sale on the Epic Games Store for like $5, and
I'm sorry.
It.
Yeah, I'm just gonna tell you, it's like,
I never touched it. I own it. I never played it. Just a buddy of mine said, "Hey, this game's on sale. Maybe we could try it." And then like we never played it. I don't even think I ever installed it.
Yeah,
that's my exposure to Siege. I don't have anything else to say on it.
I played since release, and I had a very, very loyal group of friends that only played it. And there were 4 of us, and occasionally one of our other buddies would come in. So we had a full stack of people, and we played it about like every other day for about 6 years.
Yeah, it's a game that you really need a crew. It really transforms. Yeah, it transforms with like a loyal crew that you coordinate with. It's not that's kind of like what I disliked about Siege, that it's just not an easy game to just be like, I want to play a match, because you have to coordinate so well and communicate.
What everybody says about Monster Hunter is actually true about Siege, where it's like, oh, you need friends to play with. It's like, yeah, sort of, but like Siege, you absolutely do, or you're not going to have any fun at all. But that was like what the boys unwound to every day, where it's like, hey man, how's life? It's like, yeah, bro. That kind of
that, and what was the Sandstorm, Under Siege Sandstorm? What was the other game?
Insurgency
Sandstorm.
Yes, yeah, that was the other, like that. And then when it was good, it was Battlefield. It was a big like shooter group, but we had so much fun with like the team side of that. Anyway, waiting for Delta Force to come out. Frick.
Yeah, it's still supposedly this year. I don't know when. It's funny that both Rainbow Six Siege and Apex are gonna have like a big overhaul this year, because the Apex is gonna have like their 2.0 update, and that's one game that I would like to see anything try to bring me back, because I enjoyed Apex like quite a bit.
Battlefield this year too, so that'll be another one.
Yes, I want shooters back. Like another shooter, kind of like to just go in with Joe. With a Conqueror would be that for like 2 weeks. With our CSG crew.
It's a good time. I'm just not a big shooter person. I probably won't touch any of these new shooters coming out. Maybe I'll give Battlefield a shot. We'll see.
I want to do Battlefield.
Battlefield needs to come back and put some screws to everything else that thinks it's running the club.
Yeah.
But also go back to its roots and actually, put some effort in.
I just hope Battlefield is complete. at launch. I don't want another like half-baked release.
Want it to work.
Yes,
just work
exactly.
would be good.
Work and be complete. And with that's the end of the headlines, and we're now moving into the game releases for February 23rd to March 1st. Joe, take it away.
Sure. We have coming up Ninja 5.0 on PS5, PS4, Switch, and PC on February 25th. Spectre Divide on PS5, Xbox Series X, also February 25th. PGA Tour 2K25, PS5, PC, Xbox Series X and S on February 28th. February 21st for early access, so that is tomorrow, if anyone has early access to a golf game for some reason. Lover coming to PC, Switch, PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X and S on February 27th. Alex's all-time favorite game series, Monster Hunter Wilds, coming to PC, PS5, Xbox Series X and S on February 28th. I'm just kidding. I don't know if Alex has ever played Monster Hunter besides this one that he just said he finished. I don't actually know his history with it, but yeah. Anyway, finally, Omega 6, The Triangle Stars on Switch and PC on February 28th. Who is buying a golf game early
access? Maybe they're the same people that buy WWE and the 2K games early, because apparently they have that option. So
whatever you want, whatever makes you happy. It's your money. You do what you want with it.
Yeah, and then don't complain if the game is half baked, like every 2K sports game has been like over the last decade. That's Monster Hunter Wilds week basically. And I was looking at that Ninja 5.0. Obviously, that's not your kind of game, Joe, but it's like that used to be like a Konami Game Boy game that when I just saw the art, I'm like, I kind of remember seeing that like in a Blockbuster. So I was like, I'm gonna keep an eye out just to hear how it does or how it is on the modern systems. But yeah, it's just Monster Hunter, and I can't wait to talk about it next week. So that brings us to the end to this week's episode of the X Button. Paul, where can people find you, good sir?
As always, as I wrap up with today, y'all can find me at Dork of Art on Twitter and Blue Sky.
And Joe, where can people find your dumpster of takes?
You can find my dumpster takes wherever takes are sold. No, you can
wherever dumpsters are sold.
yeah. You can find me on Twitter at Joseph_Law_Rusa. You can find my writing on Season Gaming's website. You can check out my Avowed review on the SG website as well as on the SG YouTube channel. You can also check out the piece that I relatively recently wrote regarding Dragon Age and the death of Dragon Age being not entirely Electronic Arts' fault. There is some fault on the developers there, unfortunately. And that's pretty much it. I don't have... and check out the last Bitcast episode on the SG YouTube channel where I was a guest on... It was live last Sunday, so it was good. It was a good conversation. My first appearance there. My first time actually getting to verbally speak with Hogue, who I interacted with many times. Yeah, I mean, I've known him on Twitter and we've chatted many times over text form, but I've never actually spoken to him. I'd spoken to Travis and Ains playing Concord and things, but never had that chance with Mr. Hogue. So that was fun to get to hang out with everyone for a couple hours there. And that's pretty much it. I don't have anything in the works at the moment, but we'll see what comes up and what's coming out soon, and keep playing games. I'm gonna keep playing Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 and see how much trouble I can keep Henry and Hans out of.
Yeah. And Hogue is still kind of like in the docket because he said he'd be down to do an episode here of this show like with you in it, because last time obviously you were not here. So yeah, I would love if we can get him in a poll episode, because then that way it's like shorter, like we tend to do it shorter with Paul in here, and he also that works on his schedule, and maybe that way Paul can get to hear some of the insanity that comes out of Hogue's mouth.
I don't know if I'll survive it, but I do know I don't know, honestly.
Look, if you survived Joe, maybe you could survive Hogue, but I don't know if maybe that would be too much of a singularity having both here.
We'll see.
Who knows?
We'll ease me back in.
Yes, and then you can find me at A_Segovia on Twitter, A_Segovia on Blue Sky, and also my written content over at seasongaming.com, where you can read my review for Eternal Strands, my thoughts on the PC port of Rebirth, my editorial on Rebirth like a year later. I did that kind of as a preamble for the PC release, and someday, because there's an article Joe and I contributed to, our 10 favorite games of all time that I feel it's kind of like due sometime. I don't know, but maybe you'll just see that from them, and my Monster Hunter Wilds review next week. So, and with that, that's this week's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like it, what you watch or listen, give us a like, give us a subscribe, leave us a review, or just give a star rating over there on the Spotify or your podcast service of your choice.
Just do anything, please.
Yes, whoever has done the reviews of over Spotify, thank you so much. We're at 5 stars. Like, we want to keep doing that. It's like that actually helps a lot. And tune in next week, same time, same channel, and
press X
to play.
Good night, everybody.
Hasta la vista, baby.